In my former life, I was an insider as much as anybody else. And I knew what it's like, and I still know what it's like to be an insider. It's not bad. It's not bad. Now I'm being punished for leaving the special club and revealing to you the terrible things that are going on having to do with our country. Because I used to be part of the club, I'm the only one that can fix it. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again. Many of my friends and many political experts warned me that this campaign would be a journey to hell. Said that. But they're wrong. It will be a journey to heaven because we will help so many people that are so desperately in need of help. Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt, and when I say corrupt, I'm talking about totally corrupt, political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. Believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefit of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. The corrupt political establishment is a machine. It has no soul. I knew these false attacks would come. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. We are going to have a policy, America first.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tabs on Tap. Hope you guys are all having a fantastic morning. I know I'm off to a good start so far this morning. I had to play that because, I didn't forget. I don't think any of you forgot either. Everything we voted for, it's happening. Maybe not at the pace we would like to see it, but it's happening very, very quickly. When you consider all things, that today's, believe it or not, it's March 31st. Tomorrow is April 1st. So crazy to even think in this short amount of time how far we have come. But I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Thanks, guys, for joining me at my new time. And good morning, Kim, and of course, Dottie, and Sherry, and Joe, and Karen. So great to see you guys this morning. And also, Karen, good to see you guys all this morning. Oh, what a morning. It's Monday. I can tell it's Monday, but I'll tell you what, starting at 8 a.m., I'll probably be on time because no matter what I do, I still wake up early. I was awake this morning at 4:30 a.m., not unusual for me. And Joe says, honestly, I don't understand how people think it should be any faster. I agree, Joe. And that's kind of why I add that part in. I think a lot of us, myself included, if we could push a button and have the world change in an instant, we would all certainly do it. But it takes time. It cannot happen overnight. Things have been happening at a hyper pace, believe it or not. It we all want everything to be done right away. I know I'm one of those people. But you know what? It's happening. It's happening. Things are being uncovered. It's not going to happen at the snap of our fingers like so many of us, including myself, would like it to, but it is happening. We're seeing things roll out, we're seeing things change. And Mary, the left hates us. Oh yes, they do. We saw that's been more apparent than ever, hasn't it? After seeing all the attacks against the Teslas. And thank you, Kieran, for liking the new time. I'm not sure where things are going to go quite yet with the show. I just don't know, but we're gonna know, in the coming days. I'll know soon. I'll know very soon. And oh no, Sherry, I'm so sorry about your little doggy. I hope she or he feels better. I know that's tough, but for right now, we're gonna do the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. My body needs some rest. I don't know what's ahead of me. I really have no idea. As some of you probably know, you probably saw my post. Some of you that listen to the show already know. I don't know what's going on, but I've had I feel like I'm in one of those contests, where everybody's standing in a line and they say, well, if remember those white privilege lines where they say, well, if you have two parents living in the home, take a step forward. But in my case, it's like, if you have lung nodules, take a step forward. If get another 3 month CT and they're still there or larger, take another step forward. So I've taken a lot of steps forward, and I'm continuing to take steps forward, but I don't know what's going on. So for some of you who may not know, who do know, some of you probably have a good idea what's happening, is that I had some lung nodules. Nothing that was a big deal or worrying to me at all, but they said the typical follow-up, come back in 3 months, get another CT, because we just don't know what these lung nodules are, and so I go back in 3 months, get the next CT. Well, they've grown, and then there's a third one added to the mix, and a couple of enlarged lymph nodes. Well, then of course the next step is, well, you got to go get a PET scan. So I go and get the PET scan. So then the nodules in my lungs are perfectly fine, the things they were worried about. But then they found out I have a nearly golf ball size lymph node in the right paratracheal lymph node that's enlarged and looks very suspicious. And then I had a hot spot, of course, in my thyroid. But we're going to be talking about these things. There's a lot of things that this could be. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything bad. I mean, it's all going to be bad. But so I'm going to get a thyroid ultrasound, and I'm supposed to have a head CT sometime tomorrow. They've scheduled the ultrasound for tomorrow at 4 p.m. tomorrow. The head CT they haven't scheduled yet, but they're supposed to. They put an emergency order in for me to get a biopsy of that lymph node. Haven't heard from them yet. They'll eventually work that out. When that happens, I may miss a day of show, maybe 2 days, because I might not have a voice for a couple days. But you know what? You guys know as much as I know. That's all I know right now. I'm just going to take it one day at a time, because it could be so many different things. So many different things. Doesn't mean it's anything bad. But either way, happy to have you all here at my new time. And then, maybe things will change down the road and I'll go back to 7 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. Or maybe we'll just keep it here. Quite honestly, an hour a day is probably enough for a podcast. You guys will all be tired of hearing from me. But either way, we're just going to carry on and do what we do, because there's a lot of important things going on in the world. But, through this crazy health journey, I've been doing so much reading, because I'll tell you what, whether or not this turns out to be a malignant situation or it's not, either way, we all have to start taking care of our bodies, because you know what? It may not be you today, but it could be you tomorrow. And the best way to do that is, guess what? Prevention. Don't wait until it happens to start worrying about prevention. And I'm going to have some different people come on and talk to us about these things. But one of the things I've done so much research, and one of the things I've seen very consistently, if I can get the word out, is papaya seeds. People are telling me overwhelmingly, that I had this C word and this C word and this type of C word. And guess what? They all have in common I'm not going to say the other C word because I'll get in trouble, but to eliminate what they had, their symptoms overall. They used papaya seeds. Some people said you swallow them whole, you don't chew them up. 12 papaya seeds a day. And guess what I did? I went out yesterday and I bought a papaya. I'm getting ready because you never know. And there's just so many crazy things that go along. And I'll tell you what, I don't have any predisposition to the C word or to thyroid issues. No one in my family has it, never an issue. I've not had any issues with any of these things. So things can just come out of anywhere. You get your mind starts thinking, what have I done wrong? Now I've drank a lot of tap water in my time. I'm always like, oh, there's nothing wrong with the tap water. Maybe there is. Utah, just the first state to ban fluoride in tap water. And under Robert Kennedy Jr., I absolutely believe we're going to see more states ban fluoride in tap water. We have to. Chewing gum, and I do not chew gum. There's never been a thing of me. To me, it's just like rechewing spit. I don't chew gum, but so many people do. I just read a study late last night that said chewing gum. If you chew gum, I'm gonna. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna tell you exactly the specifics here. Dottie says, "Don't tell them you're using anything holistic." Oh no, I'm not going to be telling anyone anything. And thank you, Glesna. Good to see you this morning. And Dottie, you're right. And Lori says, read up on apricot seeds. I have read up on apricot seeds because people use apricot seeds to make almond extract, believe it or not. And almond extract is supposed to be pretty darn healthy. But I'll tell you what's not healthy, chewing gum. I just read this. A UCLA study, they said chewing gum releases hundreds of microplastics into saliva per piece of gum. Think about that. Microplastics, I think, are one of the biggest threats we're going to face in the coming future because everything we do now is full of plastic. And you get that plastic in, and as it's making its way through your bloodstream, it's nicking your arteries and your veins and in becoming embedded in these little tiny microplastics. And what happens then? You can form scar tissue, blood clots, all kinds of other things. Now, of course, these are microplastics. They're little teeny tiny. But, if you can save yourself from some microplastics by not chewing gum, maybe that's the way to go. Said researchers tested multiple brands and discovered that a single piece could release up to 3,000 plastic particles. That's 94% of these 3,000 particles are released within 8 minutes running through your body. These were plastic polymers like polyethylene, polyolefin, something I can't say, things that they use in gum, chewing gum, things we eat. Why are we putting these things in our body? Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we putting things in our body? Sugar. All of the people I'm reading, firsthand stories from say, you know what I did when I found out I had the big C word? I started fasting and I started eliminating anything at all that had sugar or carbohydrates. A lot of them, people went to carnivore type diets. And guess what happened? Eliminated the C word. And, and if you guys remember me talking about this before I had my PET scan done, it was a huge revelation to me because when you get a PET scan done, what happens? They put radio tracers in your body, radioactive type tracers, because radio tracers, they need to go so they can show this hypermetabolic activity wherever the C's are, or infections or inflammation or other things that are in your body, not just the C word. But what do they do and how do they get the radio tracers to the C word, to the, let's say, malignancies in your body? They use it with sugar, a sugar solution. They inject the radio tracers into a sugar solution. They inject that in your body. And guess where the sugar goes? It goes straight to any type of malignancy and straight to the inflammation. So it makes perfect sense that guess what? If you don't want to be sick, stop eating sugar. Eliminate sugar completely. Eliminate carbs. Go to a low carb, carnivore type diet. Do your intermittent fasting. That is the key. Don't wait until you get a diagnosis. Just start now. I am not a medical professional, by the way, not a medical professional. But I'll tell you what, I don't need to be a medical professional. And Glessa says, Dr. Eric Naputi. Glessa, I have reached out to Dr. Naputi a couple of times since I've been on this show. He has never even replied back to my text messages. So I will not be counting on Dr. Naputi to help me in any way whatsoever. And I honestly don't know why. He and I have not had any issues. We were on the same station when we were both at Real Talk, and he was on my show many times there, and I loved his advice. People loved him. I drank his coffee for a really long time, and I reached out to him when I started this show. It might not be anything personal, but he could have at least texted me back and said, hey, it's a conflict of interest. I can't be on your show for X whatever reason. So, I'm not downing him. It's whatever he wants to do. But Dr. Naputi is not going to be my answer because he doesn't even have enough respect to at least just text me back. So anyone who's high on Dr. Naputi, I don't know. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm just saying, you know what? He had no reason not to get back to me, but he didn't. But Molly James is really great too. If you guys are familiar with Molly James, and let's not just stay local. There's a lot of really great people out there around the country who talk about these things, who have answers. So, there's a wide range of people. I'm not downing on Dr. Naputi. I think he's got a lot of great information. Unfortunately, he just doesn't want to share it with me. But maybe that will change. Sherry says, ivermectin. The thing with ivermectin is, and I do like ivermectin. Well, Glesna says he's out of the country, but Glesna, this was months ago, not recently. This was when I first started this podcast. I'm all for the ivermectin, and people know I took ivermectin for quite some time when I was worried about the other C word, the COVID word. But I'll tell you what I didn't do, and I've talked about this on the show before. I didn't realize this is my own mistake and why we have to be very careful when we take advice of different people, not really knowing exactly what we're getting ourselves into. Is I was taking the ivermectin, but I didn't realize it kills everything, the good and the bad. And I wasn't taking a probiotic with it. And that really could have, in the end, been my downfall. Because what happened is that, your body has these good little fighters that are fighting against the invaders. But when you kill the good fighters, then you allow the bad invaders to take over. Now, I'm not blaming that on the situation I'm facing right now, but I do think it's interesting that as soon as I started having like ulcers in my stomach, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I've killed all the good bacteria. I didn't put any new bacteria, good bacteria back into my system. I allowed the bad bacteria to take over is right about when I started having all these symptoms in different things. So if you're out there and you're taking any type of anti-parasitic cleanse or any type of ivermectin or any of these things at all. Again, I am not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm only telling you what happened to me. Is make sure you introduce the good bacteria. Take a probiotic. Eat some yogurt with active cultures. Do something to keep the good stuff going. That was the biggest mistake I made, and it may have cost me dearly, but we'll find out. We will find out. Good morning, Nancy. Good morning, Mary. And D, while that is pretty blank of him, not to at least return your message. Maybe he became all about the money like a lot of doctors do. Thanks for letting us know that. No, D, I don't want you to think that that's the person he has become because I don't know that. I don't want to talk bad about him because I've always liked Dr. Naputi. I think he has a lot of great information to share. I'm definitely not saying he's a bad person. I'm only saying that he didn't reply to my couple of messages. He might also be a very busy person. If you look at my cell phone right now, I'm going to look. I've got 172 text messages. I don't know if you guys can see that. 172 text messages I have not replied to yet. I don't have the faintest clue who they're from because I get so many text messages, a couple hundred a day that I don't always have time to go back and look at them all. So I'm not blaming him. Good morning, Scott. I'm just saying that he didn't answer my messages. Is he upset with me? Is he not? I really don't know. He might message me after the show and be like, hey, I didn't even see your messages. Who knows? I'm not downing him. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people out there to talk to, not just one person. Lots of people out there. But anyway, enough about health. We've got lots more to talk about today. Lots more to talk about. We're going to be talking more about health and a lot of other things as time goes on because, I don't know what my results are going to be. I'll have a really good idea tomorrow night. So Wednesday morning, I'll probably have some good updates, but we'll see what path we take. Hopefully not a bad path. But either way, lots going on. And I'll tell you what, it's not all about news. It's not all about politics. There's so much to life. I'm concentrating on my gardening and doing other things because, to me, one of the biggest lessons in life, it's not about us. It's about the people who come behind us. I've been trying to plant fruit trees and I want to plant more nut trees. I already have a lot of nut trees, but I want to plant more. And no, I may never see the fruit of these trees in my lifetime. Nothing to do with being ill, just the fact that it takes trees many, many years to start producing a good crop of fruit. And but that's okay in my opinion. I will still plant the fruit trees. I'll still plant the pretty flowering trees because you know what? It's not about me. It's about the people who come after me and after all of us. So we've got to think about that. I wouldn't have these beautiful, couple 100-year-old pecan trees in my yard if somebody didn't plant them many, many years ago. So we've got to think about that. We've got to plant things now for the people in the future. But enough about that. And lots more to talk about. That's for sure. Lots more to talk about. Something that I also wanted to really get into today. This was kind of breaking news this morning. If you guys know me, I really like cryptocurrency, and I especially like XRP Ripple. And we a lot of people talk about crypto, like what's going to be the next big crypto? Is it going? I've always said it's not going to be Bitcoin. Bitcoin's great for its own thing. It's made a lot of people very wealthy, but it's not realistic to think that Bitcoin is going to be the next currency. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of different ideas, of which crypto might be the next currency. A lot of them thinking XRP Ripple. Well, guess what? Just this morning, I saw that American Express and Ripple together announced that American Express is creating a crypto card, a crypto credit card, where you can use that to make purchases using, guess what, XRP Ripple. That's probably some of the best news I've ever heard. If anybody's been on the XRP wagon with me all these years, I wish it were Dogecoin. Maybe they'll do another one for Doge. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And Dee says, I notice this show has changed over the year. Dee, do you mean my show, or do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean, but if you mean this one, boy, things have definitely changed for sure, because everything is constantly, evolving, some good, some bad, but things are constantly evolving. We've seen all these protests taking place over the past few days, and over Tesla. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. I shared a post earlier on my X. I can't share it here because of all the bad language. It is so crazy to me that we have these people coming out all across the country protesting against Tesla. And what's even crazier to me about this is that everyone was so up in arms about the J6ers. Oh my God, these people went into the Capitol building and they were violent. Well, okay, Democrats, what's your excuse now? I don't see Democrats out there condemning all the violence that's taking place at and around these Tesla dealerships all across the country. Just this weekend, there was a man that was ran over by one of these anti-Tesla protesters. There was a woman who was pulled over on the side of the street and beaten by an anti-Tesla Democrat. And yes, they're Democrats, because there's no Republicans or conservatives out there beating Tesla owners. Countless videos of people damaging Teslas, scratching them, flattening their tires. These people don't even care that Teslas have 6 cameras. If you buy a Tesla, you have 6 cameras, 6 views around your vehicle. You can see the entire vehicle. These people, they don't get it. Where are the people condemning them? Where are the people condemning these people? I don't get it, And of course, Trump comes out. They had a meeting, I believe it was Friday, to talk about this, to say, what are we going to do? These people are violent. They are domestic terrorists. We're going to send them to prison. That's what's going to happen. I would love to see these people. If you pull somebody over on the side of the road just because they're driving a Tesla and proceed to beat them, a woman no less, you belong in solitary confinement for the next 20 years. You do. You have no place in our society if that's how you feel. If you see somebody driving down the street and they have a flag on their vehicle, not even a Tesla, just a regular, average, everyday vehicle that has an American flag on it, and when that person exits their vehicle, you run them down with intent because you hate them so much because of that American flag, you belong in solitary confinement for a good 20 years. And thank God there were arrests in both of these cases. And that's why I said, we just talked about this. What was it last week? The violence is unreal. We're not safe. We are not safe. You are not safe. We're just not safe. And we've got to start thinking about, what are we going to do next? Because I'll tell you what, you better be prepared. We're going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams, of course, on Wednesday. And you better be prepared. You better have a game plan, because I'll tell you what, if you're driving down the street, most of us have American flags on our car, don't we? or some type of identifier that says we might be American. Gosh knows I drive a Jeep. Well, Jeeps, they don't even need to have a sticker. They just scream American. You have to worry about being attacked. And who was it that said it? Yes, Mary, you are absolutely correct. 60% of Tesla drivers are Democrats. Conservatives aren't out buying electric cars. We're generally against electric cars, aren't we? I know a couple of conservative who have Teslas or other electric cars, and I've always made fun of them. Jokingly made fun of them, but they're attacking their own people. That's what's so crazy is that most of these people, they're their own people. It makes no sense whatsoever, does it? Just like this deal with Anheuser-Busch. Now all the left, they're all attacking Anheuser-Busch and saying, oh, we're not going to serve Anheuser-Busch products in our bars and restaurants anymore because they don't support LGBTQ. Well, not too long ago, they were your poster child, remember? Now all of a sudden, oh, we hate them. Now we hate them again. It's so fickle and it's so ridiculous. And you know what? Quite honestly, it's dangerous. And I think immediately Donald Trump needs to write some type of executive order, not only calling these people domestic terrorists, which that party's already done. They're already considered domestic terrorists. But when you see these protests taking place and you see people being violently attacked, there needs to be some serious situations going on. That guy, the one that pulled the woman over and beat her in her car, now he was issued a citation because obviously they have video of him. They saw his license plate, but he wasn't dragged off to jail. Why? If that would have been one of us, guess what? We'd be sitting in a hole in the ground right now out in Gitmo. And that's where these people need to go. It needs to be considered a hate crime, a mob action, a domestic terror incident. They need to go after these people at the fullest extent of the law. And I really hope they do. We're going to find out. I really hope they do. And Kimberly, Democrat Congress members are agitating. You know what? You're right, Kimberly. And more than that, who's paying them? That's what I want to know. Who is paying these people to go out and protest? I don't always have the best way of showing you photos, but I'm going to try to show this to you. They all have the same script. Is it going to come up? Is it not going to come up? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Well, I guess today is one of those days it's just not going to come up. It doesn't really matter. But, there's some close-up videos of some of these people and their little chants, and they all have the same script. Who is giving them this script? Who is organizing all these protests? And then we have Elon Musk sending out I always want to call them tweets, but they're not tweets, little X posts talking about, Democrats have a pretty good plan. And what they're doing is they're, through Doge, we're finding out how all of this works. We're finding it all out. And it's pretty disturbing, quite honestly. And something that he has put out there is that it's very possible. Well, we know, I'm not going to say it's possible. We know that Democrats have brought all these illegals into our country. They opened up the floodgates. And we all figured out, we remember when we were all like, why are they doing this? Why do they want all these people here? Is it about votes? Most of us thought about votes. It is a lot about votes, but more than anything, you know what it's about? It's about funding. It's about funding their little 30-year agenda. So what we found out they're doing through Doge is Democrats are opening the floodgates or allowing all these illegals to come in. And then guess what they're doing? They're giving them Social Security numbers. And I just read a report where the numbers went up from 2021. There's 270,000 illegals that had Social Security numbers and were receiving Social Security payments at the maximum limits. By 2024, that number grew to 2.1 million illegals in our country receiving maximum benefits under Social Security. When I was on the road getting out the vote for Donald Trump, I will never forget a woman that I came across. I've talked about her before. She opened the door, she saw my little leaflet and my sign, and she said, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. She had tears in her eyes. She said, you know what? I need Donald Trump to be my president. I can't live like this. I'm getting, I think she said $600 and something a month in Social Security. And she said she has no money. She's relying on her children who don't have any money. And she had to move in with her children. And now she feels like a burden. And yet we have people coming into our country illegally who've never worked a day in their life in this country. Because now, yes, some illegals do work. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the new people that come into this country. They catch them, these resettlement coordinators, the minute they come across our border, and they're giving them maximum benefits on Social Security. So, this is something that was uncovered during Doge. Now we find out that they're not only that, but they're getting tax refunds. Can you imagine coming across our border illegally? You're here, it's your first day. You're just going into the migrant center right now, and all of a sudden there's people approaching you saying, "Oh, guess what? We'll get you some tax money. Oh, you have one kid? Oh, that's $7,000. Two kids? Oh, we'll get you $13,000." This is actually happening. I've got a video to show you that it's happening, and it is absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. How is it that these people are getting not only full benefits on Social Security, but they're getting a tax refund when they've never even paid one single dollar in tax in the United States?
We do
This
this
is
stuff like this,
insane.
like at all the shelters and stuff.
But like our company, this is why we try to help people by, providing them with refunds.
This is Savannah Hernandez in front of the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. Now, we wanted to come check in on the migrant crisis, and as we were walking around, we saw a Jackson Hewitt table out here with an employee who was handing out this flyer. Now, what this flyer says is, working or not, file your taxes and we can get the maximum refund for your family. And the paper says that if you have one child, you can get over $7,000 in a refund. And if you have up to 3 children, you can get over $14,000. So the Jackson Hewitt employee who initially handed me this paper, after finding out I was a journalist, took the paper away. That's why this one's so dirty, because a migrant ended up giving me another copy. And he stated that if he's put on camera and this goes out, that legal will have to get involved.
We do this stuff like this, like at all the shelters and stuff.
But like our company, this is why we try to help people by, providing them with refunds.
So you guys are trying to help the migrants with their taxes then,
Yes.
to help them get refunds, help them get some money back from the government.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, we're just going to go try to talk to them.
Jackson Hewitt. Why don't you send a little letter to Jackson Hewitt and ask them why? And you heard what they said in the video. We do this frequently in front of migrant shelters. Here they are trying to give tax refunds to people who are in our country illegally, who have never paid a single dollar into our system. Enrolling them on Medicaid. That's the other thing that came out of Doge. Allowing them a full maximum. I'm sure some of you, I don't know a lot of your situations. I'm sure some of you are on Social Security, receive Social Security payments. Now, how do you feel that you had to work really hard for that Social Security money, didn't you? But yet people can come across our border and receive Social Security maximum amounts for doing absolutely nothing. I mean, doesn't it make you want to go across the border and walk back over, see if you can get some Social Security benefits? It is absolutely insane. Yes, Mary, the protesters were in Chesterfield recently. And Mary Soros, yes. And what we're finding out, according to Elon Musk, is a lot of what's happening is that they are giving these refunds back to illegals. And what's happening is that there's a kickback. There's always a kickback, isn't there? There's always a kickback. So let's say an illegal gets X number of dollars in Social Security. Well, they're really just getting part of that money because there's somebody who is negotiating this payment for them. So they're giving them part of that money. And then the kickback, of course, goes to the person or people, the NGOs, who are getting this money for them. And it's just more theft of taxpayer money. It's really what it all comes down to, is the theft of taxpayer money. These people are just pawns. That's all. The government doesn't care about them. I've seen countless videos of illegals here in our country where they're promised all of this stuff. They come over here and all of a sudden they're homeless. They're living on the streets, or they're somewhere, like in parts of North St. Louis, which is a lot like Baghdad, gunshots, and they can't go outside. They can't feel safe. It's happened many times. And these people are just pawns. They're just pawns. It's just another way to steal our tax dollars. And Elon Musk has alluded to the fact that guess who's paying for all of these anti-Tesla protests? Of course, it's Democrats through their NGOs, because they're coming up with all these crazy schemes to fund illegals. But really what's happening is they're taking a lot of that money that's supposed to be going to illegals, and they're just funding it back into these programs that pay people to go out and violently protest. Now, what's going to happen when we have that investigation, and which is underway, by the way, and they've come to the conclusion that these Democrats have created these NGOs, funneled illegal money laundering, the money that's supposed to go to illegals back into these NGOs. And then these NGOs are paying for these protests. Now, how is that going to look when they find out that, X congressperson is part of this NGO, their family funded this NGO. Well, now all of a sudden we have a protest at a Tesla dealership, and this guy, of course, some crazy liberal, got out of hand and he ran over this patriot. Well, then what? Are they going to be responsible for the deaths or injuries that are occurring? I mean, if it were me and I was paying people, let's say, to go to Malincrot, or what are they called now? Bear. I think they've changed names so many times. Monsanto, Malincrot, I'm not saying it right. Bear. What if I paid some people to go up to Bear and protest? I said I was going to use the money for charity, but instead I used it to pay people to protest. All these people go to Bear, and then a fight breaks out and somebody gets killed or injured. Well, guess what? I'm going to go to prison. That's what's going to happen. I'll go to prison. Well, they need to go to prison too. And it is theft of our taxpayer dollar. It's money laundering. It's funding violence across the country. But we're the bad ones, aren't we? We're the violent ones. We're the J6ers. Oh my God. People singing Kumbaya, at the Capitol, in the front lawn of the Capitol. Then a couple of paid agitators get in the mix, and then guess what happens? All hell breaks loose. But it wasn't us. It was not us. And that's obvious because we saw Capitol police officers taking selfies with some of those people coming in. We've seen the videos now. We know they let them in. We always knew, but now we really know. But those people sat in solitary confinement, not able to speak to their attorneys, not able to even shave, not given their constitutional rights. And then we have these people, out of these Tesla dealerships, absolutely losing their minds. And don't think it can't happen to you. You don't have to drive a Tesla for it to happen to you. Just keep that in mind. Good morning, Annette and Mary. Our cost of living raised in Social Security is usually, yes, less than 3%. Dottie, I pay taxes on my Social Security. Yeah, and Dottie, that is one of the things that Trump plans to eliminate is taxes on Social Security. Now, in some states, you already don't have to pay taxes on Social Security. That's one of the things Donald Trump wants to tackle. But, just as you're saying, Mary, I was just reading a report this morning that, let me look. I know I have the number here because it is an absolutely outrageous number. Absolutely outrageous number. All of the people right now who are, let's see here, 6.1 million Americans are behind on their mortgage payments right now. 6.1 million Americans are behind. And, that hasn't happened in over 20 years. The closest we came was back in 2009, 2010. I think you guys all remember what happened to the housing market in 2009 and 2010 when when the banks were just giving anyone a loan. And then all of these people defaulted on their loans and it really crashed the housing market. So right now we have 6.1 million people behind on mortgage payments. That's a really big deal. And where's it going to lead us? Americans can't pay their bills. We're worried about the cost of eggs and the prices of gas. Every little penny counts. But the government wants us to pay more and more taxes, and then they want to take our taxes and fund people to go out and protest against us. I mean, it's really kind of silly, isn't it? When you really think about it, the stuff that's going on, our government has lost their mind under Biden, and the people who follow Biden have really lost their minds. We've always known that those folks on the far left, I'm not talking about a lot of Democrats we know would never harm anyone, but a lot of those folks on the far left, they don't care. They are just violent. They are absolutely violent. They hate us. And I don't expect it to end anytime soon. But somebody's paying them. Don't think they're not. Speaking of getting paid, people absolutely despise Elon Musk. They despise him. And I think it's kind of funny, but there's this big, huge race going on in Wisconsin right now. And had I not had all these different health things going on and busy with work and so on, Turning Point was paying people, I think I told you guys it was $2,000 a week, something like that. And then after you're there for a week, they'll pay you $250 a day to go get the vote out in Wisconsin. Now, I would do it for free. I don't even care about the money part of it. You just got to do what you have to do to protect our country. Well, it's a major race going on in Wisconsin. I saw that Elon Musk did a lot. When I was in Georgia, we had a petition we had people sign that was to protect our First Amendment rights of free speech and our Second Amendment rights. And we would go around and have people sign, electronically sign this petition. Well, they're doing that in Wisconsin also. And very much like what they were doing in these swing states during election time, they're doing in Wisconsin, where Elon Musk held a rally. And the only people he invited to that rally were people who had signed the petition. And during that rally, gave away $2 million, $1 million to two different people for their assistance at the rally. And these people, I can't remember, there was a term they called them, be like kind of like an ambassador to the rally. But, he's still giving out millions of dollars to people all across this country, people who support, conservative causes. I think he's fantastic. I don't understand how anyone hates Elon Musk. I don't get it. I mean, the guy has done so much from us. Now, of course, we're talking about him stepping down in May because his job has been done. And he's only a part owner of Tesla, by the way. A board runs Tesla. People don't get it. They just don't get it. They just want to keep on being violent. That's really what it all comes down to, isn't it? Violence. Speaking of violence, if you guys, I want to talk about this because you're probably going to hear a lot about this in the news today, a lot of the escalating threats between the United States and Iran. And I'm going to tell you right now, Iran is not a threat to the United States. They are absolutely not a threat to the United States. The Houthis are not a threat to the United States. The reason why we decided to call the Houthis, of course, terrorists is because they are literally terrorizing, anyone that passes Yemen. There's no question. And we know they're a proxy arm of course, Iran. Iran has said from day one that they're willing to work with the United States on a nuclear deal. They will halt their nuclear program once we are able to mediate a deal with them. They've said that from day one. Now, something has happened to get Trump a little bit riled up about it. I'm thinking that it's not happening fast enough for him. And so he's like, all right, we're tired of the Houthis attacking Americans. By the way, the Houthis have not killed any Americans. JD Vance pointed this out over the weekend. There was an article that was written about him. And I know my notes are a mess today because I've got so much crazy stuff going on. It was by the Jewish Insider magazine. A guy named Josh Croshier wrote an article about JD Vance and about how JD Vance must have forgotten, because JD Vance kind of spoke out, not for the Houthis, but not really as against them as maybe people expected him to do. And this journalist wrote this article that said, oh, I guess JD Vance forgot that the Houthis killed 3 Americans. And JD Vance is like, no, they didn't. The Houthis haven't killed any Americans. They're a lot like Iran is. They do a lot of posturing, a lot of yapping. They might, send some shells up and different things and to try to target our equipment. They've not killed any Americans. And so that was one of the big statements he made. And he said the same thing about Iran. Iran, they're just a bunch of barking dogs. That's how they've always been. They've always been very clear that they will never make the first strike. If we strike them, then guess what? They will retaliate, but they will never take the first strike. And I'm not trying to defend Iran. I think that the folks who run the country are put in place by America, right? We did that. We've got to take blame for that, but they're terrible people. They're terrible to their people. They're terrible to other countries. They're just not good people. But at the same time, it's their policy not to strike first. And so we're hearing a lot of back and forth right now. Iran has said things were escalating pretty badly yesterday. And they were talking about, well, if the United States strikes Iran first, then we will also carry out strikes against the Diego Garcia Air Force Base or military base over in those Chagos Islands. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Chagos Island. And we have, I think, 7 B-52 bombers that we just took over there, just as kind of a, standing up to Iran saying, hey, we're not messing around. You halt your nuclear program, talk to us, make a deal with us, or else we've got these 7 bombers over here. And of course, Iran said, well, if you use those bombers against us, then we're going to retaliate. Well, of course they would. Who wouldn't? But Iran is not an overt threat. And I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering going on in the media right now. Everyone's saying, oh, we've got to worry. Iran put 60,000 United States troops, not United, whatever. I cannot talk today. Military on high alert. And, oh, they're going to bomb us. That is not going to happen. It is absolutely not going to happen. So when you hear these crazy media stories, don't give it any credit at all. Iran is not going to do a darn thing. And Mary says, because of propaganda. That's why he himself and Trump is going after those pushing propaganda as those actually committing the violence. You're right, Mary. It is all about propaganda. They want Americans to be scared. Do not be scared of Iran. Iran is absolutely zero threat to the United States outside of sleeper cells. Now, they have a lot of sleeper cells here in the country, but they're not going to activate those sleeper cells unless we attack them first. Now, even though Iran hasn't worked as quickly as they should on talking to Donald Trump, working out a deal to stop their nuclear proliferation, They will. They announced this morning, hey, we're not going to talk to the United States directly. We're not going to talk to Donald Trump directly, but find us a mediator and we will work out a deal. So that is going to happen. Don't be scared of the media, of the propaganda, because you know what they want you to think is that Donald Trump wants to get us in a war. That's what the media is going to want to tell you, that, oh, Donald Trump, he's trying to start a war with Europe. He's trying to start a war with Ukraine. He's trying to start a war with Iran. He's trying to start a war with China. That's absolutely not true. What he's trying to do is negotiate. He's placing these reciprocal tariffs against these different countries to negotiate. And guess what has happened in response? These countries have lowered their tariffs against the United States. In some cases, getting rid of them altogether. So no, it's bargaining. That's what he does best, and it's what he's doing now. And it's the same situation with Iran. There is not going to be a war between the United States and Iran. That is absolutely not going to happen. And they, of course, liberals, what you think, oh, Donald Trump, he wants to start a war. We're going to be in World War III fighting all these different people. Not going to happen. Now, what could happen is we're probably going to push really hard to replace Zelensky because we are getting absolutely nowhere in that peace situation between Ukraine and Russia. We are going absolutely nowhere in this situation. And it's obvious why. As a matter of fact, today, all of these leaders from Western Europe are in Ukraine to meet with Zelensky. Now, good and well, they're telling him, don't listen to Donald Trump. Don't listen to Donald Trump. Don't give in. And now, of course, Zelensky reneging on his deal to give us his rare earth minerals. And of course, Trump is furious. Look how much time we have spent. And of course, Donald Trump wanted this deal done by Easter. It's probably just not going to happen. Western Europe will not allow it to happen. And look what they're doing over in Europe. They hate freedom. They absolutely hate freedom. We know Ursula von der Leyen, of course, of the chairperson of the European Union. I've talked about this before, said freedom of speech is a virus. They don't want freedom of speech. They don't want freedom of anything. And I'm sure you guys saw what happened to Marine Le Pen. She's the leader of their far right leader who was going to come up and probably win against France's Macron in the coming election in 2027. Well, guess what happened to her? They charged her with, embezzlement, found her guilty. They've sentenced her to 4 years in prison and told her she can't run for political office for at least 5 years, well past the 2027 election. Why? Because she was going to win. And what would have happened if she would have won? She would have done the exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing here in the United States. And that's what the people in Western Europe want. They want to know also about the corruption. You don't think there's corruption going on over there? It's just as bad there as it is here, just as bad. We always used to wonder what one world government meant. Now we realize it was theft. That's what it meant. It was money laundering and theft of taxpayer money. Robert, Europe and NATO needs a war as their economies are toast. You better believe that. Illegal immigration and social programs have destroyed Europe. And see Martin Armstrong's podcast on Man in America. I've not seen that, but I would love to take a look. Mary, are we still giving Ukraine money? If so, it needs to stop. Yes, we are, Mary. And that's something that I have to say I'm a little disappointed in. As much as I love Donald Trump, I know I'm not going to like everything he does. And I have to just trust the system and believe that if he's doing it for a reason. But yes, we are still funding Ukraine. As a matter of fact, we stopped for a short period of time, restarted again. And I believe we've even sent them more weapons, which to me should have been an absolute no-go. When I cast my vote, for Donald Trump, when I went out and fought to get votes for Donald Trump, it was under the impression that there would be absolutely no more funding to Ukraine. That hasn't happened, but I've got to trust the process as much as I don't like it. But I thought I would show this. This is pretty funny. This is Macron. Look at this idiot. Now, see, I would have loved for Marine Le Pen to win. Eventually, Europe will fall. Western Europe will fall. All of these countries are going to come in line with the United States. They're all going to uncover all of the theft and stealing and money laundering that's taking place over in Western Europe. It's going to happen. Now look at this guy. This is the funniest thing ever. It's like, what is he doing? How can you not laugh at that? How can you not laugh at? He reminds me of Napoleon. He's got that Napoleon syndrome, doesn't he? Oh my God, I can't stand him. Quite honestly, I can't stand any of them. I don't know if it's true. I didn't have time to look at it this morning, but I saw a post that said that Tulsi Gabbard has started a Telegram channel that she posted on X. And again, I cannot confirm this. I just saw it this morning that she posted on X that everything that she's revealed, only Telegram allowed her to reveal all of the things she's uncovering. Now, I find that hard to believe because I would think that X would also give her free reign to reveal. So I don't know if it's just fake or if it's true, but allegedly Tulsi Gabbard now has a Telegram channel where she plans to release a lot of information. I don't know if that's true or not, because I'll tell you what, if I've said this 1,000 times, X, if you want to get some information, go over to X, because that's where it's all at. You have generals, you have colonels, you have, all of these different people leading all these different branches of government who are being very transparent. They have no problem. It's like there is no more secret news. All the news is out there right before your eyes, all of it. There's nothing secret anymore. You go on to X, you see these people posting directly. They're telling you what's going on right now in this country. Now, I'm sure for national security purposes, we certainly don't know everything that's going on, but they're definitely giving some information. You cannot miss it out. And, there's a lot going on in the world. I know as we kind of move through the coming days, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to talk about. I'm going to be really shifting focus. In politics is always very important. No matter what's going on in your life, politics have to be important, because if they're not, then we don't solve a lot of the other issues. Like I might be right now concentrating on health and being healthier, and I don't know what my diagnosis is going to be. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter, because the fact is we all have to start thinking about our health as number one. Number one. We're going to be talking a lot more about gardening, because guess what? If you're out in your garden, you're growing your own vegetables, or maybe going to a community garden and helping there, you're going to be a healthier person. You're spending time outside. And Robert, I think it was you that mentioned people have to get some sun, including myself. We spend so much time indoors. The sun is healing. You have to be outside in the sun. There's a reason why they had solariums back in the day, because the sun is healing. Cold weather, believe it or not, is healing. If it's cold outside and you go outside for a certain amount of time and you breathe in that cold air, believe it or not, that heals your body in some way. And there's a lot of radio frequencies. If you really get in and start looking at frequencies, there's a lot of people believe that frequencies can heal anything. If you guys can remember my friend Kasia Stocky, who used to come on the show a couple of times, and I'm going to reach out to her and see if she can again, but she had a little device called a Healy. And she would wear this device, and it's a radio frequency machine. And depending on whatever your ailment might be, you set it to a certain frequency on this machine. You wear it around your neck, and you can find them out there on eBay. They're pretty expensive, but you can find some less expensive ones out there on eBay. But you wear that, and apparently the frequency will, I got to be careful with the words I use or they'll ban the show, but it will help your ailment, whatever your ailment might be. There's so many different things. We've all, like I said at the beginning of the show, we all need to start thinking about intermittent fasting. We've all got to start thinking about alkalizing. I'll never get the words out today. I'll just give up. You guys know what I mean. And there's just so many different things we've got to do. Get out in the garden, even if it just starts with 1 pot, 2 pots, 3 pots. Start planting something that you can eat fresh. Go join your community garden. Stop going and buying the processed foods. Stop going to the grocery store. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to talk a lot more about this in coming shows. You can go out, you can do the research yourself. If you talk to people who they themselves have tried a holistic approach to various forms of healing for a lot of different disease processes, they all have a couple of things in common. They all have a couple of things in common. And just like I said at the beginning of the show, fasting, whether that's fasting for 1 day, a 24-hour fast, a 3-day fast, or a intermittent fasting throughout the day. They all talk about like I said earlier, the papaya seeds, eating 12 papaya seeds. You don't chew them, you swallow them whole. I'm still learning about all these things, by the way. But they all have something in common. No carbs, no sugar. Sugar has to be the worst thing ever invented that we put in our body. It causes disease. It causes inflammation. Inflammation leads to disease. It causes people to gain weight. Well, guess what? Fat on your body, and I'm not making fun of anybody or coming at it. God knows I've got fat on my body. And, but it causes inflammation. Fat causes inflammation. And red meat, some people are talking about how they had to eliminate red meat. Not everybody, some people. But if you look at these different people's accounts and how they healed, they all have a lot of things in common. I think it's pretty interesting and something we're going to look into. Thank you, Robert. Alkaline water. Oh, some days I just can't get the words out. So those are going to be some things. Oh, Joe says people need to take off the sunglasses. Your eyes need to be need the sun. Yeah, and sunblock is poison for your skin. Red light therapy. Yes, I've heard a lot about red light therapy. And I don't wear sunglasses. I just don't. I own a pair, but I don't wear them. I always wish I did because the sun's always blaring in my eyes. But I've always heard the same thing. Don't use sunglasses. Sunblock is poison. And speaking of, we talked about Dr. Eric Naputi earlier. That is one of the things Dr. Eric Naputi shared with me on a show years ago, is how sunblock is actually poison to your skin. You're better off getting some moderate sun and taking your chances and using something more natural than you are to use sunblock. Then Joe Fry says, I saw where the Amish use their wood ashes to keep tomatoes for up to a year. That's true, Joe. I've seen that too. What they do is they take their tomatoes and they put them in a box and they cover them with wood ash, and the tomatoes will last forever. And I've heard that there's nothing now. Of course, there are people who go, oh, wood ash is bad for you. Well, the Amish seem to be doing pretty darn good to me. Maybe I need to move to an Amish community. In Georgia, I do 18-hour fasting. Fasting is where it's at. And Joe, red meat hate is a lie. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Joe. I don't have a problem with red meat. I think that me going forward, we'll be talking more about this as things go. I don't know what's wrong with me yet. There's a lot of things wrong with me, trust me. Health-wise, I don't know. But whenever we get to that point, we're going to talk about that a lot more. But regardless, you don't have to be sick to start looking after your health. You don't. Start that intermittent fasting, getting a plan. Start out small. Build your way up. Not everybody can do an 18-hour fast, like Georgia does. I know that would be very difficult. But you know what? This big C word, it can't live in your body if you don't feed it. And that goes to show, what? I absolutely believe it's parasitic. I absolutely believe it's parasitic. And that's why when you fast, you starve it. And guess what? And it dies. And that's why if you do an anti-parasitic cleanse, guess what? It dies. And you can't convince me. If you put a spot on your arm, okay, and you say, oh, well, if I put sugar on it, it grows. If I put, whatever on it, it grows. And then all of a sudden, anti-parasitic, or I don't put anything on it and starve it, it goes away. Makes a lot of sense to me, doesn't it? So those are going to be some things we're talking about. Mary says moderation. You're right. Moderation is key in most things. But once it gets too far, you can't do moderation anymore. You just got to eliminate. Then it comes to elimination. And that's kind of where I'm at, is at the elimination phase. Ruth says, check out Dr. Jack Cruz. I will do that, Ruth. If you guys know anyone who wants to come on the show and talk about health and health benefits and holistic approaches, I would love to hear it, because that is where it's at. That's where it's at. People go out and they get these different treatments that are worse than the original ailment. That happens, and it's not just in the C word, it's in so many different things. So we're going to be talking about those things in the days to come. But in the meantime, my show is over. It's kind of weird to just have an hour. I didn't really put a whole lot of stuff together because I thought, man, an hour, I'm not gonna be able to cover a lot in an hour, but you can actually cover a lot in an hour. We're going to be covering a lot more tomorrow. We'll have Colonel Joe Adams join us on Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, we'll see where the news takes us, but there will be a lot going on. Friday, I'm going to talk a little bit more about gardening. We're kind of at that point where I've started so many of my seeds. I don't know how many, but I probably have, I'm going to guess, now vegetable seeds, probably about 300 vegetable seeds I have started already that have germinated that I'm kind of working with. And I've got to bring the temperature up, though. I realize my temperature is a little bit too low where my seeds are, and that's causing them to grow very, very slowly. So I got to speed that up a little bit. You should always keep them at about, from what I hear, right about a room temperature of 70. So the only way to know that is to use a thermometer. So that's where I'm at right now with my gardening. But I'm really concentrating, though, also on flower seeds this season. I don't know what it is, but I just want to see pretty flowers. I don't know why. There's just something about it. I just want to see pretty flowers. And so I've got a whole bunch of flower seeds that I've purchased that I'm going to be planting, a lot of perennials, a lot of annuals. So, You know, I think it's great to be able to walk out into your yard and hear the birds sing and see the pretty flowers blooming. And it is, to me, that's kind of what life is about, isn't it? Just the beauty of this unique world that we're in. All right, guys. Well, that is it for me today, but I will be back tomorrow. We got a lot to talk about in the coming week. And the good news is if I start at 8 a.m., I'll be on time. I won't be 10 or 15 minutes late. It's kind of like I started at 8 a.m. anyway, right? Just this time it's official. All right, guys, I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I hope you have a really great